Hello everyone, we are here to share with you our story as to how we got here.
We are so happy to be able to do this, to relate to you as much as possible, the experiences that we've gone through, the things that the Lord has taught us, and we pray that you give us strength to communicate to you as meaningfully as possible, so that you can be blessed by this experience as we've also been blessed by it.
Yeah, so we've been married for 7 years, more than 7, and we've been trying to give birth, and by God's grace on the 7th year, we had a child. So we are here to just tell you the beginning, the journey, and then how our relationship when it comes to God and ourselves has been through the process. Yeah, Theresa.
Okay, so I'm going to give a brief background. Where do I start from? Right from the beginning. Okay. So he mentioned that for 7 years we've been trying to have a child. When you get married, and it's like the most natural thing afterwards to be able to grow your family, to have a child, and that's also what we hoped for. We waited a bit, and then we started, and unfortunately it wasn't working out. I had health issues. It started with fibroids, which is something that was with my mom as well. She also had difficulty giving birth as well, but not as long as we. By the grace of God, she was able to have her kids together with it. But unfortunately, some of these things, as they move on along the generations, you don't know what happens. So it wasn't easy for me with regards to dealing with fibroids. I got diagnosed with fibroids. The first I heard of it was when I was in first year. This was, I think, 2011. I started experiencing abdominal pains in my first year in the university, and the doctor that examined me was surprised. He asked me, "How old are you?" I think then I was 2011, so I was what? When I came to school, 18, 19-ish. And he asked, and I told him, and he was surprised because he was surprised at the sizes of the fibroids he was seeing. He felt that they were unusual for a girl my age. He then told me that if I want to have children, I have to have them removed. So then I was like, oh, okay, no problem. God will help us, we'll deal with it. Because I also knew my mom's story, how she had also been told she had to remove hers before she could have kids. But by the grace of God, she didn't have to remove it, and she went on to have her kids. So, I mean, that was my ammunition. I held on to that strongly, and in my mind, I was thinking, oh, don't worry, the Lord will still help us to have our kids. I wasn't married then. This was way back in first year. Fast forward into 2016, 2017, after we got married. Then we tried and it wasn't working. So we did the labs again, this time with a different doctor. So this was now the doctor we were seeing, our family gynae. And he then also had the same recommendation that the sizes were unusual. When he first measured, he said that my womb looked like I was 5 months pregnant, and this was because of fibroids. So he said if we wanted to have children, we should do the surgery, and we agreed to do that first surgery. So we did the first surgery, was successful, everything went well. We're happy about it, we're hopeful. And about 6 months later, we had an issue, so we conceived. That was about 6 months later. But unfortunately, we lost that very early. This was, I think, about 6 weeks. It was very early. And that was, it was painful, but then you hear, okay, a lot of people tell you about how they lose their first pregnancies, and don't worry, you have another one. This is a success. Even the doctor said, oh, it's positive, because before there was no conception and now there has been conception. So it's positive. So don't worry, you try again. So even though it was painful, that hope was there that now there is the possibility. Before there hadn't been the possibility of conception, about a year and a half, but now that possibility was there. So it was okay. We were fired up and ready to try again. Then we tried again. Do you remember how long after? Maybe about another year or so. Later, there was another conception. I'm not really sure of the month, but there was another conception, and that was even shorter. I think we lost that somewhere between 5 and 6 weeks as well. That was even shorter too. So then the disappointment came again. And after that one, I think that we didn't have any other conception for a very long time. We went to see another doctor because there was this time after the second miscarriage, there was simply no conception coming up, and we went to see another gynae who this time recommended we do laparoscopy. That's it called, right? Yeah, laparoscopy. So they insert a camera through the navel, and then he examines the abdominal area to see what's going on there. So it was when he did that he discovered endometriosis, and he said that it was at stage 3. There's like 4 stages, and stage 3 endometriosis. So in addition to fibroids that had regrown, there was endometriosis. And he then made us understand that because of that, if we want to have kids together with the fibroid and everything, the womb and its surrounding areas are unsafe for conception. So we will have to do IVF to be able to conceive, and then afterwards I'd be able to carry the child. So from there we decided then to do the IVF because that was the recommendation of the doctor. And we did that. We went through that as well. It was successful. We had the conception, the pregnancy. There was a period, I think about 12 weeks in, I started bleeding. 12 weeks into the IVF, I started bleeding. And we went to the hospital. He did some examinations, and he said that he was not really sure of the fetal position, so he suspected it was ectopic. So they had to do an exploratory surgery. Laparotomy, yes. So this was about 12 weeks into the pregnancy. So we went in for that surgery because he was not sure if it was ectopic, it was life-threatening. So to be able to make sure that I was safe, we agreed to that. We did that, and it was an experience. We went into that surgery with very little hope. We thought that we would lose the child because if it was ectopic, then they would have to take the child out. So it was difficult, but I mean, we did that. Then thankfully, when they went in, the fetus was not ectopic, so they stitched me back up. But the sad part of that was that he told us that even though the fetus was not ectopic, he had found there was adenomyosis in the womb, in the walls of the uterus. And actually, the protrusion in my womb before that we suspected was fibroid. Actually, was adenomyosis because it was very hard. So before they had told us that it was calciferous, it's the fibroid that had hardened. So I had this hard mass that was external. You could feel it. If you touched it, if you pressed on my lower abdomen, you felt it. So all along we thought it was a hardened fibroid because that's what we had been told. But when this doctor went in after the exploratory, he said that the reason that thing was hard, what was there, was not really fibroid, even though there were still fibroids, but it wasn't. That thing was adenomyosis, and that I think is related to the endometriosis, by this time occurring in the uterine walls. And because of that, it was making it difficult for the womb to expand. The womb has to expand with a growing child, so it was making it difficult for the womb to expand. So we hold on for the baby to get to about 7 months. As he specifically said 28 weeks. And then when it could survive outside, they would take it out and then incubate it, because the condition there was not allowing the womb to expand for the baby to grow. So even though that was an unfortunate incident, we were still hopeful because then the child was alive, the child was fine. But that was short-lived. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, I think about 3 or 4 weeks later, we found out that the womb expansion issue had caught up with the fetus and it was not able to survive because the womb could not expand. So we lost that child under such tragic circumstances. This was very heartbreaking because this seemed like our only hope, or maybe the last point. And from that experience, the conclusion or what the doctors told us was that because of the adenomyosis and the womb expansion issue, I will not be able to carry a child, even though IVF can give us successful conception, or I would not be able to carry the child because the womb was not conducive for that. So on our next try, we would have to have a surrogate mother. From some time along the journey, we considered that, and personally, I wasn't against that because it was something that had come up, and that during our earlier discussions, even before the IVF, it was something that had come up. But I don't know. It at that point when we were being told that was our only option, it didn't seem like something that was what we had to do. But anyway, that's what we were told. So that is the background against which we share this journey with you, because as we sit here now, by the grace of God, we have a child, or that journey has come to an end, and we have a child, and that's the story we want to share. So this is the background against which we will be telling you what we went through from the point where we were told that I could not carry a child to the point where we've had successful pregnancy that I have carried and delivered at full term, to now where we are raising our daughter. That is what we want to share with you, how we got from that point to this point. The goal is not to share with you a miraculous story so that you be happy, or so that you see that wonder shall never end. No, that's not the goal. we believe that the Lord has a plan for this story. We believe that this is something the Lord wants to work with. And this is the direction of the Lord, that through this, He's going to do something in the lives of all those who will encounter this story. And so therefore, in obedience to the Lord, we share this testimony with you, and we pray that you will be blessed. Amen.
I would say that it's been a journey towards faith, and not that we had faith from the beginning for it to even be challenged. Yes, there were some levels of confidence we had, and those are not necessarily, even though based on divine providence, when a man marries a woman, the expectation is that going forward there will be pregnancy, conception, they will build a family. So that's what we believed in, that is going to be for us. But then along the line, you get to see that now it's been difficult, and you are also open to know that there are medical challenges. So there is this scientific part of it and the spiritual part of it. And I think that in the entire process, we had to come to the place where we have to forget every confidence we had and to just believe in what God has for us. So I would say that the journey in itself actually built in us a certain faith in God. It removed all the confidence or belief systems we had concerning how life ought to be lived, especially as couples looking for children. I would say that personally, this process has really taught me what faith ought to be. My understanding of faith, I think it wasn't really what faith has to be. It was more of, okay, say na braboti, this is how it has to be. And you realize that yes, naturally you believe it in your mind, but inwardly there will be some form of doubt. There will be some form of question, like a lot of questions coming here and there. So you have dreams, you are questioning, you have words coming from people, you are questioning. But this personal belief or personal assurance that this is going to work for you. You hear the story. We have fibroids, we have miscarriages, we have IVF, losing child here and there. And it's like, you don't also have any option, knowing very well that especially your wife is not going to be able to carry your child. And it's like you are pushed to have an option of surrogacy or maybe going to be with another. I mean, a lot of challenges here and there, but it comes to the place whether you're going to choose what you believe in or to look to God. And I personally realized that I had to forget everything I believed in. Not I had to, I forgot everything that I believed in. And one of the key things that I see that this process built in us faith was the fact that trying to even forget everything that I believed in terms of what the possibility was. I couldn't do it on my own. It had to take God for us to be brought to the point where genuinely then the only option we had was to look to God and wait.
I completely agree. I think that this journey challenged us to learn what true faith is. I was sharing with him earlier that coming from a place where even though you are told that faith is not just mental assent, when it comes to when it comes to actually believing, we tend to think that okay, because I agree with it, I have faith. But this is a situation where we are trying to get something to happen, something that is naturally impossible, to be able to conceive naturally, to carry your own child, to get that to happen amidst all these troubles. I mean, the doctor said it was impossible. And here we have the word of God that says that this would happen for you, like it would happen for us. But how do you believe that? How do you totally have confidence in God that this will actually happen? It has to be more than just agreeing mentally, because you can agree that, oh, okay, this is the word concerning us. This is the word concerning us. The prophetic word has come that we would have children. But deep within, when you are left to yourself, we face all these other realities, and it's like, how will it happen? So I believe that we really had to encounter faith. We had to learn that it was beyond that. I recall a conversation I had with a sister of mine, and in the conversation, this was after the IVF experience when we came in the conversation. So she was asking, so what will be the next step? Like, what's the next thing that we would do from now? And I remember how the answer came. It was just an answer I hadn't thought of. I didn't have to think about it to give her that response. My response was that right now our only hope is God. Like, God has to move. God has to do something else. Like, there's nowhere to go from here, because there's nothing we can do about it. And as I said that, I felt it. I felt that was genuinely my current state, that the only hope is God, and that the Lord had to move. And I believe that point is a place where you get to, it's like, it's no fake, but it's a point that the Lord has brought you to, and at that point there is some faith there.
I think to add to what Theresa was saying, I looked at it from the perspective of how a lot of times you have voices that are actually communicating with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, as I'm talking to you, you have things going on in your mind. How did these people go through this? What they're saying, how it affects you and all that. So there are voices all over as we're going through this issue. And what I realized was there's this difference of faith, a word that is of faith and that of just a mere belief. One of the key things that I realized was that getting to come to faith concerning this, God had to bring us to the place where what He tells us concerning this ought to be eternal. So then you could actually rely on what He says concerning it, whether it's going to be positive or negative. And you believe that this is not going to be taken away from you. It's like that is the only thing you could hold on, even to death. And for me, a man cannot come to that place. I felt for us to get to the place where we can really be confident, or even to believe that something of that sort will happen to us, that will also have a child, God had to come in. And it's when we come to this place that I think we say that, yes, we've come to faith. So the question is, how was our faith challenged? I think that the challenge was not really about, or the challenge was not against a particular faith we had, but the challenge was actually against the kind of faithless condition that we were in concerning what we were looking for, and that real faith had to be built in us for us to be hopeful in God to have a child.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you will think that, okay, you can believe something, or your own, you can believe something. I mean, we had words from the Lord concerning having children, concerning like the Lord will give us children. And you think that, okay. Like when you keep repeating it to yourself, it will happen. But that's not how it happens. And you get to a point where you are trying to reach God for what He wants to do to to happen, because it's the Lord who wants to give us children, and we want that to come to pass. We had to, like, all the fakeness must be dispelled. It has to, because it won't yield anything. So what is not faith has to be put aside. What is just in your mind that is not true faith has to be put aside, because it won't yield the results that the Lord wants to bring. And if the Lord wants to give us children, then we have to walk with Him. We have to follow Him. We have to do the things that He wants us to do. And we have to come to the place of true faith, where everything is left to Him. Genuinely, like, all our confidence is Him. You can feel like, okay, yes, we will have children and be walking around. Yes, we will have children in the name of Jesus. Yes, we'll have children. But it's not genuine. When you are left to yourself, you are wondering, hey, will this thing really happen? When you are left to yourself, you are wondering, hey, like, is it true? That kind of thing. We had to leave that place for the Lord to bring us to the place where we were very sure that this will happen. Like, the Lord will be faithful to, like, the Lord is faithful and He would accomplish that which He has said. Like, to leave yourself for the Lord to bring you there, I believe that was the challenge. And to get to the place of true faith, I believe that the Lord really, it was all the Lord that worked with us and helped us to even come to the place where we could actually believe that what He has said, He will do. Prayer is how we found God in this journey. Prayer and spirituality, I think that it's one. Yes, to be able to get to the place where what the Lord wants to do can be done through us. I believe that is, and like previously I was saying concerning faith, it's not something like maybe when you are looking for a job, you can go and work out the job yourself somewhere and come and give credit to God. No. This in this one, the Lord was the only answer. The Lord will move. That was the only path that we saw possible. And prayer is how we found God. So again, like regarding faith, we had to learn through prayer, Anna. We had to learn how to like be honest before the Lord in prayer. And by the grace of God also, at the time where we were going through this journey was also a time where we were praying a lot in church. There were a lot of teachings at that time regarding how to pray genuinely, be honest in prayer, to bear your heart before the Lord, how to search for the Lord in prayer, to hear, to listen to what He has for us, to walk the path of spirituality, which is in obedience to God. So I believe that those teachings played a great role in helping us along the journey. Particularly for me, that was it was a time also that I was learning to pray well. I mean, not just go and say things, talk to God, like just say things, but to apply my heart in prayer, in praying, to make sure that my heart is feeling what I'm saying. So to learn how to pray and to pray consistently, to always bring what we are praying about before the Lord in different ways. I believe that was the main tool. That was the main tool. And by the grace of God, we were being taught how to apply this to how to reach the Lord in prayer. And it was a wonderful experience, because the prayer life also opened up for me. It opened me up to other things that the Lord wanted to do with me, especially with regards to ministry. It's because it was in that time where we're praying for a child, so this is post IVF, where we began to seek the Lord actively concerning childbirth. That even in the times when we're praying for that the Lord was also speaking to me concerning many things about ministry and doing the work of God and other things like that. So the prayer opened up a lot. It actually opened me up to some level of relationship, relating with the Lord that previously I didn't have. And it's the main tool in all of this, in how the Lord brought us victory, to the place of victory. It was a prayer life. I had this experience. Sometimes I go to pray, I have my prayer topic. I'm going to ask the Lord for a child. Then the Lord brings up something in the prayer. Those experiences are amazing. Like I have brought this is what I'm coming to pray about. Then the Lord draws my attention to something else to pray about, or the Lord draws my attention to something within me that I must change, some sinful behavior with me that I have to change. So these things were coming up in prayer. These were the things that were coming up in prayer, and it was not an easy time, but it was also exciting, because for the Lord to bring something up in prayer, that's why we have come to pray. We have come to hear from the Lord. So for something to come up, an instruction to come up, some direction, it was hopeful. Because as the Lord speaks, we are going somewhere. As the Lord speaks, you know that, okay, good. Like there is something to do. We are on the path. The Lord is taking us somewhere. So these experiences in prayer, they were hopeful experiences. They were not easy, but they were hopeful experiences, and they were exciting. And it has stuck with me, because now that's what I know of prayer to be. It's no longer me going to say things, but it's me going to hear things. Going to hear what the next step is from the Lord. Going to hear what the Lord wants me to do. Going to hear what the Lord has for me. That is now what I know to be prayer, or that's what the Lord has taught me that prayer is to present myself to the Lord, that He may impart to me what He has, that He may rub off on me in a way. And it is through this journey that I learned that thing experientially. Before then, that's not how I was praying. When I started out, that's not even how I was praying. I went, pray, Lord, this and the prayer was all about me telling God things. But for me now, through this journey, when I go into prayer, what I'm looking for is that the Lord will impart unto me His mind and what He has. And it is this journey of childbirth, looking for a child from God, that blessed me with that experience. I'm sure you also have similar things.
Yeah, what I would say is that you, like I said early on, it's more of the little things that actually happen to us in life, little decisions that we make in life that are actually not seen to be spiritual, and we seem to then make decisions, or we seem to feel or have intentions that are not actually connected to God. And so you realize that if we were not going to pray, it was very clear to us that what was provided in the material, as most of the time man seeks to make provision for the material, we realized what is provided in the material for us was not going to be enough. I personally realized that my conversation with God had to be real. And for me, this is what I learned. It was more of real feeling. I think prayer is real feeling. Real feeling of trying to know exactly what is going on within you and not what is outside you. It's more of, and that is what spirituality is. It's trying to return to what is hidden within you, like returning to what is hidden within you. And for me, yes, we were taught that we have to be obedient, we have to be righteous, we have to follow the word of God, and we were doing that as much as possible as we could. But you realize that you wanted to really get to have something within, because the awo abontino in sisiso, like, it's not really satisfying, and you had to go beyond that which is visible to really obtain something that is enduring. And there is only one gateway to be able to do that, and that was prayer. As a pastor, I'm still learning how to engage a lot in prayer, but one key thing that I believe God helped me to be doing consistently was not to run away from myself within. I believe that's a very good way of praying, to really be there within you as God is showing you, and to submit that thing to God, for God to really deal with that, for God to really tell you things. You see, we spoke about how our faith was challenged, how we came to faith and all that. I don't think without prayer I would have been able to survive what we went through. One of the strong words that I heard was about a child that we were blessed with, Lara Michelle, and I had an assurance within that she was a gift to us, and it was through prayer that I was able to obtain that. It's I mean, of course, I mean, the father, the mother, they've told you that you are the godfather, you are the godparent, but I got to a point in prayer that it was very clear to me that even if we are not supposed to give birth, even if we're not going to give birth, Lana Michelle was a gift to us as couples, and that blessed me. And I didn't obtain that knowledge. I mean, God had to take me through a certain level of prayer. It was in church. God had to take me through some processes spiritually for me to come to that assurance. And without spirituality, I don't know what you would do. I don't know. Without wanting, and we are not actually spiritual most of the time. We are spiritual beings, but we are not connected to that most of the time. And so it's like mostly the outward world is calling on you, and you must then bring that before God, for God to actually show you what actually is within, for you to be one with it. And I think that prayer and spirituality help us in the process of coming to believe what God had prepared for us.
I think that it was important to obey the things that the Lord brought up. And a lot of the things that the Lord brought up personally to me, they came in prayer. They came in my personal prayer times. Some came in corporate prayer times when we were in church and we were praying together. But these things came through prayer. A lot of them came through prayer. A lot of them. Even if something came through hearing the message, it was highlighted in the personal prayer time, and it was stronger then. And it was also very important to obey. Several instructions came from the Lord, instruction upon instruction, and do this, and something within me is highlighted. I mean, I can think of an example where in the course of prayer, the Lord brought up why I wanted a child. I mean, that was something that came up, and there were feelings that welled up within me during prayer times. Like,
why I wanted a child, I had to answer that question honestly, and I had to face the dishonesty within me first of why I wanted a child, to come to the realization that it was because it was like the next step after marriage. And it's nice when you have your kids. I mean, family pictures are beautiful. The interactions at home, it's like it's the next step, and it's beautiful. So I mean, that vainness was what was within. It had nothing to do with the child, the other person that the Lord had brought into the world for some purpose. It had nothing to do with them. Genuinely within me, I discovered that it was all about the fact that that's the next step. That's the next step after marriage. We must multiply, and it's something that is picture perfect. It's nice to be with your kids, to look at them, to spend time with them. You get that thing, like, and that was it. It was as shallow as that. So then, having kids honestly was not about the child. It was just about my pleasure. And that's something I had to face deep within me, to come to the realize this is what I am thinking. Like, as I've come that the Lord should give me a child, this is what I want it for. And the Lord had to bring me to that point where I realized that this was it, and had to teach me. Then I had to reorient. He had to teach me that was not the purpose of children. It's not about us. It's about the fact that the Lord is bringing somebody else into the world, and we are stewards in charge of raising that person, in charge of helping that person to get to the point where the Lord can use them for that purpose. You see, this is something that came up in prayer, and not just even one prayer session, like relating with the Lord in consistent prayer. This was something that came. And honestly, even personally for me, consistent prayer was something I wasn't doing prior to searching for the Lord concerning childbirth. But desperation is a wonderful tool. It makes you do the things that you previously thought were impossible. If you can't do something, it's because you are not desperate. If you are desperate, you the strength will appear, and that's something that desperation is something that I pray for. When I realize that I lack energy concerning something, I've seen what desperation has led me to do before. So it's something that I pray for, that the Lord helps me to come to the end of myself and be desperate for Him. And it's something that the Lord helped me with, to be able to even be consistent in prayer, because then when I come, I find that the Lord has something, and He willingly gives, He willingly helps with that. And these were through prayer times and through spirituality, having to walk the way that the Lord wants us to walk in obedience. And by the grace of God, it's one of the things that I believe that the Lord has blessed us with. The mind to even how to deal with our daughter now. Realize that it's not about us anymore. It's not about me. It's now about her and who the Lord wants her to be. So that is now one of the things that we look to from the Lord. And that is one of the gifts of prayer and spirituality in this journey.
Yeah, I want to say something small about the spirituality and prayer. It's, we are Christians, we go to church, and we believe we are spiritual. But one of the key things that I experience is our belief systems actually cannot be substantiated without prayer. So majority of the doctrines the teachings that were taught in church, like say children are a gift from God and they are supposed to be raised to be angels in heaven, and that's the reason why God blesses man or blesses men with children. And it's like like she was saying, when you go in prayer, this is what you say is your reason. So because you heard it, because you were preached to hear that, you think you know, and so you may not even engage God concerning it in prayer. But one of the key things I realized was that prayer was that portal, that door for the real you, the real belief systems in you to show up.
Exposure.
To really reveal to you what sort of belief systems you have as against what God is promising. Yeah. It's God's mercy for me. That's God's provision. One of the key places that I realized that God was with us in the process was during the IVF. And I actually approached the process in a very calm nature. And it was because initially I wasn't for the IVF. And so when we were going to Accra last time out to do the IVF, I really wanted to find out my position concerning the entire process. And there was this word that came to me, that I am with you. It was something that was crucial for me, and it made me realize how God was going to be with us through the process, because it was uncertain as to what we're going to have. But one of the key things that strengthened me, what made me believe that good could come from there, was the fact that God was with us going. And it actually supported the kind of state that we were sharing whilst at the hospital, in terms of the setbacks, in terms of the difficulties, in terms of the challenges. I felt between the two of us, you see, it's not easy. It's not easy going through some of these things. During the IVF, I visited a friend of mine who then had married for 7 years. And so we were sitting in her office and I was talking to her and she was narrating her story. And I also had opportunity to tell her what we're going through and why I've been in Accra for that period. And so it was about the IVF. And I was telling her that currently this is what my faith is. Whatever the Lord wills, it should come to pass. And this was even when there were no issues. So Elder Tess was pregnant, we were happy and all that. But whilst I was in the office, there was this thing that, mommy. And she said that no, I should not talk like that. That's not faith. Mm-hmm. But for me, I felt I couldn't hold on to anything but these little voices that I believed were from God. And that for me was the only strength I had as a person, as a man, even to pursue some of the decisions, to just believe that something will happen, because I couldn't find any strength anywhere. Our man of God, Pastor Walter, was telling us that he knows we're going to give birth, but he doesn't know how. So in terms of hope, I had this hope that eventually I will. But as to how to gather strength, and the pressure too was a lot. So it's like, you don't have that strength to withstand all the forces that were coming to you, but to rely on the word of God. And for me, that is the Lord's love. So I'll say that the only way we could actually be strengthened and to believe that there was a better future for us, there was a new state for us that we could actually experience, was the fact that God's love was near us. In our experiences, we could feel His love. We could feel His love in the people that were around us. We could feel His love even at the hospital. People were working around you to make sure that this particular dream of yours come to pass. And the only thing I could interpret it to be was that nyamido, you see, because I couldn't see that we could do it with our own power or strength. Yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
Okay. Hope. One of the earliest things I remember, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was through a message that Pastor Walter preached. It was about not giving up. And I remember that one of the things that I latched onto from that message was that to give up is to die. So this is something that I have consistently repeated to myself, and it's very strong in me. I believe that is the doing of the Lord, that to give up is to die. It's like when you have hope, you can move. But when you don't have hope, when you give up, there is no motivation to move, and it's all downhill from there. So this is one of the things that has kept me. And to also understand that life can be lived without children. It's one of the things that kept me going in the periods of childlessness, especially when we are in a company. We have friends, so we have a lot of friends, and that we started out with in marriage, and a lot of them went on to have their children, very beautiful children. We are together a lot, and they go first round, second round, third round, and it's all around us, and we are in this struggle. They are in it with us, but they are not in it with us. Yes, and you see all of this happening around you, and it's like, when? And you go first round, doesn't work. You go second round, doesn't work. Third round, it doesn't work. And it's like, give up already. But these words from the Lord, they kept us, they kept me. To give up is to die. So it's one of the things that strengthened me, and that also life can be lived this way. You can live life and not have children, and you should be fine. You should be fine. You should be able to serve the Lord. You should be able to move on and do things and live and die. Finish what you have to do here and go. Without children, it's not reason enough to give up. So I believe that this is one of the things that the Lord strengthened me with. That these two things come to mind, that to give up is to die. And it's one of the things that the Lord blessed me with, and that also life could be lived this way. I also recall that during one of our earlier counseling sessions concerning this childbirth with Pastor Walter, he mentioned that he had seen us with children. Like this was like a prophetic word from him, that he had seen us with children. This word is something that kept coming back to me. And even though it was not my vision, it was his vision. It was not my vision. It was something that kept coming back to me, and it strengthened me. The pastor has seen us with children. So even through the failures, I held on to that. And it was something that I treasured, that I didn't see it, he saw it, but I believed so much in it, that the fact that he had seen it, I believed in it, and that was a gift. It was a gift from God to me. So even through the failures, there were times where I asked myself, even when I was doubting and I was questioning, it all ended up at this point somehow, that Pastor has seen us with children. It's funny, but it was a strength to me that this had come. And also even in the process of through it all is the word of God that strengthened us. The word of God, in whichever form it came through others. It came through also personal ministrations of God to us. They were strengths to us. When we found out that we were pregnant, March of 2021. 2023. Yeah. Yes, 2023. 2023. I was in Gambia, and I recall one time I was praying, and the Lord told me in prayer that this will be an incident-free pregnancy. This was as soon as we found out we were pregnant. I began to pray about it, because previously I had received the word from God that the next pregnancy will stay. So I held on to that. And we were anticipating, but we didn't know when the next pregnancy. It was actually out of the blue. We weren't even expecting. It wasn't even at a time where it's like, Charlie, you know, when you are expecting pregnancy, you're a married couple, you're expecting pregnancy, the way you approach your sex life is consistent. But this was even at a time where we were even a bit laissez-faire with it, and we weren't really like, we were expecting that the Lord would move, but the time it came was a surprise. And when it came, I was like, okay, so it has come. You hold your breath. You are pregnant. And in prayer, the Lord told me this would be an incident-free pregnancy. It's one of the things, it kept ringing throughout all the 9 months of pregnancy. And it's like, will something happen? Charlie, when you've been traumatized several times, it's not easy. When good is coming to you, it's like you are just steady, because you've seen Shege before. You can't even allow yourself to be too joyful, because, But I kept holding my breath. Incident-free pregnancy. First month, second month, no incidents. Third month, even though the Lord has said, Charlie, it's not easy to believe God.
Yeah, so that was what I was just re-echoing in mind. At the end, it's easy, sir. You see, Theresa was like, I don't think it's easy for the reason why it's not easy for man to believe God or to even have hope is because of the impurities, the sin that is in us. And so the reality is that because we had some individual ideas that were against the love of God for us, then it was very difficult for us to appropriate strength or hope. Theresa was like, I want you to find out, do you think it's normal for you to believe in the system that you can live in this world without children, and that information has to be man-made? I don't think it's possible. Like, those of you that have given birth and it's been normal for you, maybe you've not thought about how this is a blessing and how this is God's giving. But in our position, then we realize that you cannot really believe that something like this is going to happen unless God has blessed you with that hope. And it's, for me, that's the difference. That's nipa nia hoden sa. Like nipa nia hoden. And initially we begin believing that we have strength, but you realize that you are that very weak. You don't have any hope. And you know, there are levels of hope, and that which is not really genuine will eventually die. It won't survive the fires. And I believe we had certain hopes that, like she was saying, we were not thinking of when a child was going to come. We were not expecting it. And so I believe that God has actually had brought her to the place where na yadwin and that's yadwin that baby so. And for me, that is real hope. That is real hope, yeah.
Plenty of doubt.
that's life. Because of the uncertainty, you have a lot of questions. You have a lot of disbelief, and it's an expectation, and whether it's going to come to pass or not. So you get to see, like Teresa was saying, you get to see some of your friends having children, and you question, hey, almost say about but when is it going to be? And it's about the internal battles. So this is going to be, but something within you is also telling you that if it would be, it would have been. Something will be telling you that yes, it's possible for others, but not you. So that for me is the battle. It's full of doubt. It's full of question of why, question of why is it us? It's like God is going to say that you're going to have a child, but if that's true, then why is it delaying? Why is it not happening? And if it's not happening, is it because we've done something wrong? I was telling a friend, is it because we've done something bad in the past? So the doubts are plenty. It's like this journey will not be without it. It's one of the key things in the process of coming to faith, that when Jindisa and what questions say, yeah, what has been said will come to pass. And I think it's necessary. It's necessary to reveal to you that you are a man. It's needed for you to know your state, that you cannot really generate anything good, and that what is in you actually is trying to tell you that no, it's not possible. And so yes, I had a lot of doubt.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, what I felt like what I was asking, or what we were asking, is like, would it ever happen? We are coming from, I mean, we talked about in the backgrounds, I had very large fibroids, a number of them. I mean, the first myomectomy that we did, there were about 4 or 5 large ones that were taken out. We're talking about like fist-sized ones. And we're asking the Lord for healing, because these things needed to come out for my womb to be a safe place to support fetal growth. So we're asking for healing from the fibroids, we're asking for healing from adenomyosis, endometriosis, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Is that it? Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and on top of it, the laparoscopy also revealed that because of the previous surgery, there were a lot of adhesions and the anatomy had changed. So it seemed like a whole lot. And to top it all, I mean, if there were smaller things, I won't see on the outside, but this was the situation. My lower abdomen was distorted because of it. So every time I lay down, I could see the fibroids protruding, I could feel them. And we're asking for healing from the Lord. This meant that all of this would go. This meant that if I lie down and I look at my tummy, I won't see this hardened protrusion there. And it was, in short, a miracle we're asking for. And I felt like, can a miracle happen? It's like, hey, will God hear you? Would there actually be a day you would wake up and all of this will be gone and your womb will be able to support or carry a child to term? There were a lot of doubtful moments. One proof that there was even doubtful moment was one morning, after one morning in this whole journey. It wasn't even a morning. it was an evening that we were preparing for bed, and I lay down and my hand wandered over to my abdomen area, and it felt different. It felt different. Like, when I realized it felt different, I was shocked. It's like, where was the hardened extension I used to feel, the hardened mass I used to feel there? It wasn't there. So I was like, what's going on? What's happening? Something has changed. Something is different. I remember calling. Did I call you to come? To come and feel? It was strange. Then I picked up the phone. I called Pastor Watt. I said, Pastor, I can't feel it anymore. It was amazing. Like, I couldn't believe it. I remember what he told me. He said that, when the Lord turns the captivity of Zion, we were like they that dream. It was unbelievable that, like, the healing had happened. And it was So did we doubt? Did I doubt at any point in time? Yes. Because it seemed to me like what I was asking was impossible. It was like, how will all of this just vanish one day? But one evening, I realized I don't know when it left. I can't pinpoint when it left, but all I have is that one evening, my hand wandered over there, and what used to be wasn't there. I really remember that. I do. I remember that, and it was a joyful moment. So it wasn't always we were hopeful, we were jolly. No, there were difficult times. There was a period that, I don't know if you remember. Every month when my period came, I would break down in tears. And this was before the IVF time, but I remember that there was that period. We were so full of expectation, and your body has a way of being funny in those times. Symptoms of menstruation are similar to symptoms of early pregnancy. So the body has a way of delaying your menses for about 4 days, and then you begin counting. You begin to feel hopeful. Is it happening this month? Is it this month? Oh, then day 5, day 6, your menses comes, and it's like the hope is dashed. Those times were difficult, and I used to wonder, like, when would this be over? Would this even ever be over? Those days were there. So yes, those periods were there.
I think that it became clearer what the Lord's intentions towards us, towards me, towards men are throughout this journey. And one of the things that the Lord I experienced through the grace of God was His love. And I find that one understanding that the Lord gave in this period was that His intentions towards us are good, and that if we seek Him, we will find Him. I think that is one of the blessings of the Lord that came up in this period, to always have that assurance that the Lord is ever willing to help, like He's in that perpetual position to help. I recall that after I experienced healing, even a bit before the pregnancy started, after I experienced healing, one of the states I was in was that the Lord will always help me. I felt so helped by God that I entered this place where I feel like anything I ask of the Lord, the Lord will help me. If only I can hear from him. I can come to him. I can hear from him. The Lord will help me. And it was strong on me, even in little things, to the extent that even when I misplaced something at home, I felt like the Lord will help me find it. So I had these times where everything I was asking the Lord, little things, I couldn't find something. Then I asked the Lord, because I was in this mind that anything, the Lord is willing to help. The Lord is always willing to help. So I began to ask for these things. Like I've lost something, I can't find something I put somewhere. Then I'm searching for it. Then I ask the Lord for it. I find myself in prayer asking the Lord to help me find it. As trivial as that. And then I find it. So I came to this place. I came from a place of not trusting, not thinking that the Lord, miracles can happen for everybody except me. Or the Lord helps people except me. And I came from there to realizing that, no, God helps me too. Me too, the Lord can help me. Me too, the Lord loves me. And I actually came to see that the Lord is good. That is the major testimony, that the Lord is good. He is good to all who call upon him, that the Lord is good. And that is where the relationship has come to. Like, this is something that I believe strongly, that when we call upon the Lord, he helps us. He actually helps us. And this is a reality, that the Lord helps us. So that is where I believe that my relationship with God has evolved to now, is that understanding that the Lord is love. He loves us unconditionally. It's like, oh, you can know it in your head. They've told you God is love. No. But I believe that this is beyond that. This is a certain understanding that anything that we desire of the Lord helps us with it. You see, the Lord helps us with it. And the way the Lord helps us is also something that through this experience I have come to understand, that he helps us through his word. He gives us instructions through his word. That is actually how the Lord comes to us. Instruction upon instruction upon instruction upon instruction. By obedience to this instruction, he leads us, he leads us, he leads us. And one day we will find ourselves at that place. We don't hold them up, so we don't know when that day will be. We don't know when that time will be. But we can believe that, I can believe that by walking with the Lord on this path, by obeying the little things that he tells us to do, one day we will open our eyes and we stand at the desired place where he desired to bring us. And it's a blessing to find ourselves in this situation. It's a blessing to be here, to have this experience with God. I truly feel honored, like the Lord has helped us greatly in this way, and I'm happy about that. I believe that also currently in motherhood, the Lord is helping us, and it's from this relationship that I can believe that the Lord will even help me to be a good mother, because I have experienced his love in times past, and the Lord does not change. So that same God who helped us, who brought us from the place of barrenness, from the place of childlessness, to this place where he has given us the gift of a child, is the same God that will raise the child through us. So that is also the strength that the Lord has given us. So there is more ahead with regards to relationship with God. We have barely scratched the surface, but I believe that the relationship has gotten better, and there is more ahead that we look forward to. It has even made it more exciting to search for God, because one small part that we found is like, there is more. there's more. So that also, that has made the journey ahead more exciting, and there's more to anticipate ahead. I'm very happy. Like, I'm very happy to be able to share. I feel like the Lord has given us a solution that others can benefit from, and I'm happy to share about it and to tell others about the saving power of God. So this is exciting. Yes.
Got a lot in there. Yeah, so I would want to share some of the experiences that I had in terms of my journey with God. I wasn't interested in wanting to do something for God. No. I even still believe that in terms of what God can use me to do, I'm far away from it. But in this relationship is what made me become aware. This journey is what made me become aware of my real intentions. It's like none of the lights you could actually use to see yourself gives clarity than that of what the Lord has to supply. And the more we were pursuing God concerning this, personally, in terms of prayer, I don't recall doing that till one particular prayer time in church. I prayed about it, and it was all about what I want to know about myself. It was very strong. Recently, Pastor said that knowing yourself will let you know God. It's been a journey of, I want to know myself. I want to know what is within me, and I can't find it anywhere unless I walk with God, because nothing can describe you except the one that made you the better way that you are, or the best way that you would want yourself to be described. And the more I got to know my heart, the more I also realized that God had power to bring me closer to Him. So yes, as we were beginning, I said we were journeying from faithlessness to faith, and it's like the day of our marriage, I cried, and it was a revelation of what was ahead of us, and I didn't know that childlessness was one of the things that we're going to face.
Yeah.
And as we're going through those things, those moments during marriage and some of the revelations or visions I was having made it clear how difficult this was going to be. And I wanted to find myself in that process. I wanted to understand what was going on. And I couldn't understand it better from any point of view except that which the Lord had to say concerning me. So that made me realize that to really know myself, then I had to go to God. And it was amazing. It was amazing because that's when I began to love wanting to do something for God. So it's like the more I got to know my weaknesses, the more I got to know my poverty, and the more I got to know that the only person that could actually help was God, the more I got to love the things that God would want to do. And surprisingly, God was using me to do things that left me alone. Like I won't just get up and go to someone's house because I'm supposed to be there. No, I won't do that. But in the process, there were instructions that you could see that this is not of you. Because you know yourself, and you know that left you alone, you won't do this. But you are doing this because you believe someone above you is the one that is instructing. And it's like, you don't have even the power to resist. Not that you don't want to resist, but there is a willing in you that makes you surrender to the love of God. And you seeing that these instructions are actually like anytime I obeyed such instructions of being in the position to be used by God, I was excited and I liked it. So it was like you are getting close to God. You are becoming that person that is happy. One key thing that maybe it's not up in the conversation is that I don't know if it's a giving up, but I forgot about bearing a child. I was more into what God can use me to do, and that has been the journey, the purpose that God has for me, and even the role of having a child and all that. I realized that if I will know, and to know yourself is not necessarily, okay, so I'm new, okay, but to know my use. If I was to know my use, if I was to know what I was made for, then the only way to know it was to get close to God. And it was God that was drawing us to benefit from this nature, this inheritance that he has for us. So yes, my evolution in terms of spirituality, in terms of my journey towards God,
Yeah.
I was raised a Pentecost. We started church. We go to church every time. I was in Methodist. You see, but there is this desire that yes, God, and the truth of the matter is that you don't necessarily know God exists except you go through this thing I'm talking about. I don't think a man will have the ability to believe that there is a God if the Lord does not actually draw them from their point of view of not liking God to the point of view at least having a certain affection for God. It's like you don't know how to love. You want to learn how to love. And that process is how to know God, how to know yourself, how to come to yourself as the Lord made it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Okay, so talking also about instructions, one of the things I experienced in this journey was learning to obey God. And I want to share two of the experiences that came with it. I recall that I talked about motherhood, the Lord ministering to me concerning why I wanted to have a child and become a mother and all that. So from that, when the Lord showed me my real state concerning how I thought of having a child and what my mind was, I went to the Lord concerning then how to deal with it. I realized that, okay, so this is who I really am. I'm just in for the fun of it. And in thinking of it, I realized how I was dealing with some of the opportunities the Lord had given me to be a mother. Not to my own child. I didn't have a child then, but to the others that had been entrusted to me that I had opportunity to be a mother to. I was looking at my niece that's living with us up now, and I was looking at how I deal with her. Was I dealing with her as a mother would deal with a daughter, or I was just dealing with her as somebody that is just staying with me? So I had to re-examine all these relationships. I had to learn how to deal with her properly, learn how to deal with her as a mother would, to sacrifice, to love her as your own, as somebody that the Lord has brought to you, to be a steward over, to care for, because the Lord requires her to be of service in future. How to prepare her for that. My attention was also drawn to my goddaughter, Lana Michelle. I had to re-examine how I dealt with her, because she spent time with us. She spent a significant amount of time in our home. We expected to care for her when she was, but I realized that when she came to my home, all I was interested in was keeping her for the period that she was there. I feed her, clothe her, make sure she's fine. And that was basically it. What of her development? I watched over her as somebody who was just temporarily taking care of a child and you give the child back to the mother. So all you have to do is let the child survive for the period that they are with you. Afterwards, you hand it over. So I always look forward to when I could hand it over to her mom. But the Lord drew my attention to that. No, these were opportunities to prepare me to be a mother. And I had to treat her not just somebody that I will eventually give her back to her mother. No, but to genuinely be a mother, to care about her development, about her raising, to pray for her, to love her. So grace, as the Lord is good, as He teaches us, He always gives us opportunity to learn, to experience, to practice, to put into action the things He's teaching us. So I realized that I had opportunity to do this because she spent significant time with us. So the next time that she was brought over to spend some time with us, I decided I was not going to look forward to when she would be picked up, but rather I was going to decide that this was my child and she was staying with me and not going home. How will I deal? I had to teach her. I had to spend time with her. So when she was with me, it was not about occupy her with things and let her play and let her do her own things and while I wait time. No, I had to be with her. I had to talk to her. I had to teach her. We read together. We do activities and things like that. And she was with me. Before then, she hadn't stayed with us for more than a week. But her parents traveled a bit. When they came back, I didn't ask them when can she come back home. I decided to keep her until they themselves came and asked that she be brought back home. So she was with us a week. She was with us another week. Then her father said, bring back my daughter. And I said, okay, I'll bring her back. So when she went back home, the next time we met at church, Pastor asked me, what happened this time when Mommy came to your house? Because when she came back home, I realized she's different. And I was sharing with him what the Lord had showed me and how I had decided to deal with it this time, to learn how to be a good mother and not a caregiver, a caretaker, but to actually mother the child. And it was a powerful experience because that experience changed me. It changed me. Before, I was just handling and taking care of her, surviving till they come for her. But that built something in me. It made me more than just somebody who is just interested in her living, but interested in her well-being, interested in what the Lord wants her to become. And that was a very rewarding experience for me. I bless God for that. The second one also was that in the course of this, even as I was praying for a child, I previously mentioned that the Lord was also talking to me about ministry. In prayer, He was talking about ministry things. So I found that getting at a period where we're getting to the end of this, just before the pregnancy thing came, a few months before, I realized that I in my prayer times, I could not pray about the pregnancy. I was no longer praying about healing and asking for pregnancy. Whenever I went to pray, I was rather praying about the work that we were doing as a ministry. I was praying about my role in. These were the things that were coming up. I was praying about being gifted, doing the work of the Lord. And these were the things that the Lord was bringing up in prayer. Then I recall that one time my shepherd met me, Pastor Brian, and he told me that he feels like my intensity towards the healing and pregnancy has reduced. And it was true because I was no longer praying about it. And it wasn't because I didn't care about it, but whenever I went to pray, the other things, the work of the ministry and those things I had to do, the work of God is what came up, and that's what I felt like I should pray about. So I told him that it's not that it has reduced, but I told him that yes, I also feel like it has reduced, and it's because it had reduced, because I wasn't pushing much in that direction. But even in that, it was how the Lord was leading me. I could have gone back and said that, oh, okay, the intensity has reduced, so let me push to pray about that. But whenever I was praying, I couldn't rather pray about it. What I felt like I should pray about was the work of the ministry. And the Lord was also raising me in that direction. So by obeying the direction of prayer that the Lord was leading me, several things came up concerning the work that the Lord wants us to do. And in the end, He brought about the deliverance concerning the pregnancy as well. So it's very important, the role of obedience in walking with God. We cannot walk with God if we are not obedient. If He will tell us what to do and we won't do it, then we can't walk with God. We are actually not walking with God. And the thing that the Lord desires to do, it won't happen if we are not obedient. So these are two main things that the Lord has helped in this journey with as well.
I just want to add to the obedience part. Like, you know, some of the instructions that you get, I mean, you're looking for a child, generally is a desire that is down there, right? Waiting for it to be answered and all that. And it's like, what I want to say is that generally we don't begin close to God in all the pursuit of life. Dances, even your spiritual walk, giving birth, how to take care of children, how to take care of children that are not your own, how to work, how to contribute to your society. We generally do not start from the place of closeness with God. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that we through our lives have disobeyed God. And so for us to actually come to the place where we can receive good, we have to be drawn closer through obedience. It's like what she was saying. We have to be, the Lord has to draw us closer, because majority of the time we are far away from God. And it's this little, you see, funny, because there were certain actions I took that I believed was God's instruction, and the feedback was that it was an answer to someone's prayer. It's like, as I was making that move, the response from the people were like, hey, then I won't hear say this is what. It's like you could actually get to see that, yes. You see, when we say you are close to God, it means what God wants is what we want. And for me, that's how the closeness of God came to me. It's like, if God speaks, I can also hear, and I have what it takes to obey that. And for me, that was very, very good. It's like you can hear God's voice and you have the strength of God to also obey it. And even though I do not count those things as that which yielded to we having a child, I think without that, like we won't have that belief, because then it will be that, okay, it is our own way of doing things that has led to us to this point. But that willingness, that working of God in man, for man to hear Him and to obey Him, to will that which He wills, we generally do not start from there. And yes, it takes some of these experiences to bring us to the place where we can actually even say that God's love is close to us and we are experiencing it.
This scripture is one of the scriptures that's made a lot of sense to me throughout this entire process. All things work together for good to them that love God and to those that are called according to His purpose. To love God is to obey His instructions, to be obedient to Him. And we've talked a lot about the importance of obeying the instructions, how the Lord works with us by giving us instructions, and our obedience to those instructions lead us to the desired end. Throughout this process, one thing I learned about the plan of God is that ultimately God's plan is to bring us to the place of good. It may not seem so. Actually, it did not seem so at the beginning. It did not seem so at the beginning. Even though I knew this scripture, I had heard of it, that the Lord intends, for I know the plans I have for you, they are plans for good and all that. When it came to its reality in our lives, I was not seeing that concerning the path that we were on with regards to childbirth, with regards to healing, its related healing. But along the lines, this is one of the things that the Lord taught me, that His plans are for our good. It doesn't, at the beginning, it may not look like it. Instruction upon instruction, when some of the instructions come, it may not look like it. When things happen to us that we see are bad things, or we feel like they are bad things, it's like, wow, is this also God's plan? Is this what's happening? But ultimately, if we walk with the Lord, we will realize that no matter how terrible the situation is, the Lord can use that situation for our ultimate good. And I can give an example with when we went through the third pregnancy, that was IVF, and we lost that child. And after we lost that child, Mama D, one of our pastors, she shared with me a vision that the Lord gave her concerning our situation. And the vision was about a situation that seems bad, but even though it looks bad to us, the Lord, in the end, the Lord will turn it for our good. I mean, when she shared that vision, it was in the moment of fresh loss. So I understood what she said, but it did not have a lot of impact on me at that point in time. But I kept it. And as things began to unfold afterwards, I understood it. I understood that even though we had just been through a very difficult situation, we had lost our third pregnancy, that we were so hopeful for, it had advanced. I mean, the fetus was about 4 months. We were very excited and all. And we had gone through this painful process of loss. And everybody was down and sad about it. In the end, the Lord used that situation. And here's how I feel like that situation was used. Prior to the IVF, we were hopeful that, we have this path of the IVF conception that will work and I'll be able to carry the child. So this path was there. So, I mean, even when we're looking to God for help in that. But that was an option that we had. So, I mean, as we went through it, we were happy, we were going through it and all. But that painful loss, how difficult it was, the way we struggled, the pain in it was something that brought me to a place of desperation. And afterwards, I began to search for the Lord with regards to healing and childbirth, with a certain desperation that previously I didn't have. There was some intensity, there was some fervency. That intensity came from the loss of that third pregnancy. And before then, even though we had been seeking the Lord, it was not with such deep desire. So occasionally when I'm there, this question pops up in my head: do you regret going through that whole process, the process we went through with the third pregnancy, the IVF, and all the related surgeries that came with it? Do I regret ever going along that path? And the answer for me is no. Because even though it was a very heartbreaking situation, it was It was terrible for us. It provided the desire, that desperation, that earnestness, the fervency that was required to go running after the Lord. It brought me to the end of myself, where indeed the Lord became our only hope. The Lord became our only hope. So I don't regret that situation. I see it as God's plan. It's not like the Lord caused the end of that pregnancy. The Lord destroyed it so that his purpose. No, I don't believe the Lord destroyed it. I believe that it was a bad situation that the Lord turned for our good. It was a bad situation that the Lord used for his purposes. And I'm thankful for that. I'm happy, because in that we did not just gain a child. In the end, we gained healing. We gained some spiritual advancement, the opportunity to know God on a certain level and to become who we are now. And I see it as God's plan. So in my mind now, every situation the Lord can use, no matter how dire, no matter how bad it is, if we turn to the Lord can use that situation for his good purposes. So when it comes to the plan of God, that is one thing that I've learned, that all things work together for good to those who love the Lord, to those who obey his commandments, who walk with him, who follow step by step his instructions. The Lord will lead us to a place of good. So we should look to God in all of these things. I believe that is how the Lord will help us.
Mostly what I saw in the process was the faults that man has in himself without God, and trying as much as possible to get a solution as deemed fit in terms of what they are looking for, in terms of what is available to them. And I also experienced and I saw some of the decisions that we made that were not necessarily inspired by God, and then the result of such decisions. And it made me realize that most of the time we want to be in charge, but then we're really not in charge. We are really not in charge. It seemed to us as we are in charge, and it is God's mercy to bring us to the place where we know we are not in charge. Talking about this process where how we got to have a child is one aspect of life, and I personally realized that, like Theresa was saying, to come to the end of yourself in terms of the desires that you believe you would want to accomplish as an individual, one way or the other, or often we are ahead of God. We want to be in charge, and it's a sign of our insecurity. It is a sign of our insecurity, and that's one of the key things that the Lord wants to take away from man. That's one of the key things that God wants to save us from. And we were made not to be in charge, but in our daily lives, we want to be in charge, and we cannot also be in charge and receive from God what he has for us. And so when we are looking forward for things from God, when we really want to participate in that which the Lord has for us, then it was very clear that we cannot be in charge and participate. We cannot be in charge and receive what God has for us. We cannot be in charge and be hopeful, because we're not made to be like that, because we are not supposed to be in charge. Then being in charge then became counterproductive. It wasn't productive for us to be the one that were making decisions. And for me, every single failure made me realize that there were certain decisions that actually were made from self and not necessarily God. And it brought me to the point where now if God is directing, then there is this strong assurance that God is with you, and it's like whatever be the case, God is going to be in charge. God is the one that is in charge. And I felt it was a better experience compared to when you are fully in charge and you know the differences. You know, like yesterday I described, there are certain decisions you are making, left you alone, you will not be making them. And you also saw the efficacy of holding on to faith and not holding on to faith, like being in charge, wanting to do things and getting results on your own dimension, like making decisions that you think that that's the way to go. And as humans, we build upon knowledge. We accumulate experiences that we believe ought to be that which is. And it speaks to how we want to be in charge. But this experience made me realize that indeed we are not in charge. And it brought me to the place that, okay, then God should move. Because I realized that without his help, without his mercy, we couldn't do anything. I remember I resigned to, if this is not going to come through the natural means, I don't know how I'm going to engage again. And it was like, this is where God has brought us. This is the place that we have come to. And if God is not going to move, then I don't have what it takes to move. But it used not to be like that. It's like we are moving. We want to do things. It's like, okay, so this person said they got results here. We should go and look for it. This person said, so it's not that we really are being led by the Lord, but it's like, this is what we believe. We from ourselves believe. And I saw the difference in terms of results. I saw the difference in terms of the assurance that you would have, the calm nature of the peace with which the Lord comes with its authority as compared to when you are in charge. And I realized that most of the time I end up destroying things. I end up not even learning, improving spiritually. And then I'm okay when the Lord is in charge, and then all the negatives, all the positives actually seeks to bring me to the place of peace. And so that brought me to the place of, okay, and the nyame the baby are okay. And that's where we have to come to, because there is no security for us as men except God. And so I felt like, okay, then God be in charge. Yeah. But initially we are very strong, and it is seen in our decisions. So we realize that our strength is no strength at all. And then we want to then allow God to, that's the process of we being saved. So yeah, that's it.
Do you remember that at a point we almost went through adoption? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm talking about, losing control to God. You see, blindness is one of the key things that will come up in this kind of experiences. And when I say blindness, it's like when we are making decisions and those decisions are fueled by desires that are of the flesh. And most of the time, we don't even get to see the impending danger that our self-willed ability will lead us into.
Yeah.
When the option that we were supposed to go and adopt came up, I had a message, and that assurance was, okay, there is Lana Michelle, you're going to be fine even if you don't have a child. Life is not just about having a child, and there are so many human beings you can take care of, and you can actually, one key thing, like the Lord brought me to the place where I felt like I'm a father to Lana Michelle. So it wasn't that when it comes to fatherhood, I was lacking anything, except that maybe I didn't have a biological child. And so when the adoption process came up, I was so fixated on the fear of doing things that are not inspired by God. And I knew for sure that that was not an inspiration from God. It was just, okay, normally when people are in such conditions, these are the options available. And so if you've done this, you've had miscarriages, you've done the IVF, it didn't work, why don't you adopt? But I felt it's like that's the self in charge. That's the self in charge. And by the grace of God, the Lord also spoke to all of us one way or the other. Teresa had visions. We had the opportunity to talk to our man of God. And it was so clear to us how such decisions were fueled by our individual desires, and not that we are being inspired to move by God.
I think that with regards to the adoption process, personally, it was the Lord that helped us. Because interestingly, I think this came up around January, somewhere around January, and by March we were pregnant. And it was interesting how it happened. There was an opportunity to adopt a little girl. The parents were in favor. I mean, she was very ready to come. They were very ready to bring her, and the only thing that was stalling the process was us agreeing to her coming. And at that point, I felt like I was ready. I felt like it was okay, but he wasn't sure. And it's because he hadn't heard from the Lord concerning it. I hadn't also really heard from the Lord concerning it, but all I had was, okay, this is a good thing. I mean, there is this opportunity to be with this child, to help this child. So I felt like this is a good thing, but I had not heard a direct word from the Lord concerning it. And what held me on was the fact that I wasn't willing to bring a child into our home that he wasn't in agreement with. I think this was very important, because sometimes you feel like, oh, okay, I am ready, you are not ready. Why are you not allowing me to do what I want? But that's also not the way of God. That's not the way of God for us to deal. You cannot, I should not just look at what I want to the detriment of my husband. So I believe that the Lord restrained me in that way, to not just bulldoze over his comfort, his happiness, and just go and do what I want. So I held on, kept praying to the Lord, and he spoke to Pastor Walter about it. Pastor called us, and I remember prior to that meeting, I had some dreams twice consecutively about that were very significant concerning this adoption. I wasn't very clear on them, but in that meeting, Pastor explained it to us. He helped us look at it from various angles. And as I went into that meeting, my mind was that the Lord should help us. The Lord should let me know his will. And I was happy that Pastor called that meeting, because I believe that the will of God was going to be clear to me in that meeting. And it was, because after that meeting, I was settled. I don't know. I believe you also settled on what to do. And we held on. So we held on. We closed this chapter because I saw clearly that it wasn't the will of God for us at that point in time. I mean, we don't have anything against adoption. The importance here is that what the Lord has planned for you. So we held on, and interestingly, when we held on, about 2 months later, we found out that we were pregnant. I keep wondering what would have happened if we had gone on. I don't know what would have happened, but it's something I wonder about. But we believe that this, in holding on, that was what the Lord wanted us to do, and we are happy that we did.
One of the things I learned over time was how prayer draws a lot of people towards God. When there is a desire that people are interested in wanting to see realized. And so our case, our inability to have a child, because marriage is about families, and communities, we had a lot of people praying. And one key thing that I learned was how people could actually hear from God concerning what we're going through. And it was a revelation of then people are getting close to God one way or the other. And so I saw how powerful prayer is to unite a man with the intentions of God, and how prayer can soften a hardened heart. Because as an individual, one of the key things that I realized was how gradually the way I perceive life, the way I perceive people began to change. I had certain levels of interest in people that used not to be there. And it was through the experiences that I was having in prayer. Certain affections were coming up that were not there, that I began to have them, and I believe it's because of prayer. For me, the fact that what is spiritual can be made visible in the life of a body, I mean, that's Theresa's anatomy, is very powerful. It's a very powerful way of getting results. And I felt because we came to the place of not looking for solution from any other place, but looking to God, then what we have as results is actually as a result of prayer. And the ability to do belong to our conversations with God, our interactions with God, people's interactions with God, people opening up to perceive, to receive things from God. One of the key experiences I had, Pastor Mike visited us in the house, and then he was leaving, and he was praying for us, and then he heard that a year by this time we're going to have a child. And my mom also had the same experience. I mean, people had the same experience that you are going to have a child, and all of these things came as a result of their conversations with God concerning our issue. And for me, for different groups of people to have a united voice, it can't be achieved without prayer. For people to tap into what the divine plan is, it only comes by prayer. For people to corporately have the same affection, I thought that okay, because prayer then brings us to the place where we all can come to having a united desire, a united cry. And so it's like prayer has power to submit all of us under the will of God concerning a matter. And I think that's very powerful, because we know ourselves, it's not easy for all of us to come together and say that this is what we are looking at. But it's like we are all praying, and because we are praying to one person and we really genuinely will pray well, then prayer is the door for us to be united under one reality, which is God.
What is interesting about this corporate prayer that I got to see was it was interesting to experience what the scriptures refer to as the Lord of hosts, the Jehovah of armies. It's like the Lord moving in people, different people, to intercede for us. It was something that was wonderful to be a part of. There were people with us in church. There were people who were even not in church with us. There were people in our families, friends, who were moved to pray, not just casual praying, like people who were consistently praying for us. And they were praying under the divine instruction of God. A brother of mine called me in March 2023. So my birthday was the 23rd. He called me the day after, the 24th. And I thought he called to wish me happy birthday. And he was sharing with me how the Lord had led him to pray for us. And he believes that the Lord is going to move on our behalf with regards to childbirth. So this is a family member, and he had been praying for us under the divine instruction of God. There were others as well who I had heard. Some had spoken to me directly, some had spoken to Pastor, how the Lord had instructed them to be praying for us. So they were consistently and fervently praying. And it was wonderful to see all this going on in other people's lives, that the Lord had moved them. The church was praying as well. I recall that the night that we lost the third pregnancy, there was a leaders' retreat, and the leadership of the church met under that leaders' retreat. They prayed for us together as a church, that the Lord will help us. It was a strengthening experience, and it was so wonderful to see the Lord moving in that way. It was actually a powerful, it made a powerful impression on me, how the Lord can move amongst men for his plan, for his purposes. It's something that it's very impressionable, and is a mighty move of the Lord, to see the Lord moving in. So I see that when it comes to prayer, is a wonderful thing. I think another experience with regards to prayer, I think we mentioned earlier that in the course of the IVF, when they suspected that the fetus was ectopic, they went in to do laparotomy. So on the night that they did it, was it a night surgery? I think it was done. It was done in the night.
It was early morning.
It was very, very, very early in the morning. Very early in the morning. I remember that after it was done, so just when it was done and I had recovered from anesthesia, I was able to talk. I was able to do things. One of my sisters called me, Pastor Wendy. She called and she was like, "Charlie, I've not slept the whole night. I've been praying for you. I've been praying for you." And even then, she didn't. So I told her we didn't lose the child then. Through that surgery, we didn't lose the child that night. Even though we went in thinking this was the end, they were going to remove it, because if it was ectopic indeed, so we went in thinking that was the end, but it wasn't ectopic, and the child was fine at that time. She said she had been praying the whole night, and she was very excited to hear that the baby was still alive and still in there. And it was a wonderful thing to experience that kind of movement in prayer, that she had been interceding for us. So the power of prayer cannot be underestimated at all, and I believe it's something that we experience in this whole encounter.
After the IVF, the night that I got to know that, okay, so we've lost the child, I've come home, my daughter was in the house, was in the hospital. I mean, the family was trying to console us and everything, but it just came on me strongly, go and pray. So I decided to pray. And a brother, Pastor Brian, called me the day after and said that I was praying for the two of you. And it's like, I was praying for the test, but you came up. And that you are in. And so, you see, it was prayer that made him see some of the things that were standing in our way. And we could actually come to that realization that these are things we have to consider. And I'm saying these are things that are hidden, but prayer had the efficacy, the power to really bring these things out and to push back the enemy, so that what the Lord has willed will actually be. The fact that Lana Michelle was introduced to us as a child we can be godparents to she opened us up to believe, to experience having a child in the house. She gave us a foretaste of raising a child and genuinely building love towards a child as your own. And I'm saying it's divine intervention because it didn't let us feel as if we did not have a child. So even though we didn't have our own child, we knew there were children that belonged to us one way or the other. It's like God has given us the opportunity to bear responsibility towards them as our children, as people that we are contributing to raise. And we had a lot of godchildren. Like, I mean, we had a lot, like a lot. And these people will come to your house, and it's like, even though they are not your biological children, you love them, you like them, you are enjoying life as they are around. You want to bear responsibility towards them. And it made me believe that God has provided for us. It's when Lana Michelle was being given to us, one of the key things I remember the parents told us was that it's not that she's a consolation to us. It's like she's not being given to us to console us, but that we may, through the process, be helped. And I feel like that's God's intervention, that we could come up. It's not easy that people do not have children. Someone will give birth and say, hey, come and have this child as your God child. And I felt it was God's intervention. And one key intervention that even though we saw happen is the healing that went on. Yeah. From the IVF, it was impossible for Theresa to carry a child, and there were videos that actually showed the impossibility of my sperm traveling to the womb for conception to happen, like to the fallopian tubes for conception to happen and all that. And it was very clear to us that it's going to be difficult. But we've also seen through the process how the pregnancy was very incident-free. Like nothing actually happened negatively in the pregnancy process. And so to have all these anatomical issues there and to have gotten pregnant and the pregnancy was incident-free, and during the process of giving birth, I mean, she did CS, and it's like health-wise, you don't have a lot of challenges as compared to before this natural conception. Do you get it? Because we've had a lot of processes where you have a lot of incidents, but then this particular one was like unim said you see it, and as it has happened, you are not really facing. It's like it's normal. You are going through the process free of any difficulty, and for me that shows how it's not the hand of man but God's hand at work. And for me, this is God's intervention for us. Yeah.
I quite recall another intervention with regards to healing. We've spoken a lot about the things that the Lord did, but this experience is also significant to me. I remember that a few months when we returned after the third loss, and we returned, I began to experience very heavy bleeding. Remember, I was hospitalized for some days, and after that experience for some months, every time my period came, I bled for about 10 days.
And this was very heavy. I'm talking about changing about 7 times a day. This was very heavy bleeding for a very long period of time. And this was every month. And it was a struggle. And there was a time Pastor Brian met me on campus. I was in this period, so I had gone to teach, and he met me on campus, and he asked me, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm not fine, Pastor Brian." So I began to share with him the experience, what I was going through with regards to this heavy bleeding. He said, "Okay." So I remember that after that, he began ministering to me in prayer. So there were times after service, he would pray for me, he would pray for me with regards to healing, he would pray for me, he would ask me what's going on, he would pray for me. Then after that, there was one service I remember, he prayed for me for a very long time. He said the Lord had instructed him to pray for me. And the month after that, excessive bleeding stopped. You know, when I was having this excessive bleeding, I attributed it to the endometriosis. Remember, the doctor told us that it causes excessive bleeding during menses. So I used to bleed heavily, but not like this. Before, I always bled heavily. Previously, I changed a lot. I bled for about 5 to 7 days, but it was heavy. So I always used maxi pads. And in this time, I was using maxi pads only. Actually, for a long time, I've not used normal pad before. But after he ministered to me, the following month when my period came, it was light. It was what it used to be when I started bleeding from childhood. That kind of bleeding that had stopped for many years. And since then, I've been able to use regular normal pads, had normal flow, and I believe that was very significant when it came to the healing process. That was one very significant thing for me, because for a long time I was always chasing maxi pads. My cousin will tell you how excited I am when I see a maxi pad, because Charlie, my solution is here. But now I'm able to use the regular flow pads. So that was a wonderful experience for me when it came to one of the healings. And I also recall that one time after, when we were praying for healing, I had this dream where in the night I was lying down, and then I saw my womb, and it looks like everything that was wrong with it was lifted up, and it rolled onto the floor. And then I picked it up, and it felt like a ball that I could pinch and it would loosen. So I did that, and this was in a dream. So when I woke up, I woke up so joyful. It's not like I woke up and when I remembered it, I was happy. I woke up like joyful. I woke up very happy, and I think I shared it with you. I shared it with Pastor because it was very significant. The impression of it was very significant when it came to the healing that we had been praying for. It felt like everything that was wrong in my reproductive system had been lifted. And the joy that came with that lifting, I carried that joy from the dream into real life, and it was amazing.
When it comes to pushing, when it comes to moving forward, without the faith community, I think you will die in the process. You will give up in the process. And I'm bringing this thing up because the more we fellowshipped in the community, the more people were being blessed, and we could actually see it. So I'll share some experiences. One of the key experiences that I had, the challenge that I had personally, was that, okay, so you're a pastor, you are part of a congregation, you have to be going to church, you have to make sure that you are present for church activities. And so naming ceremonies like today's one that you are experiencing that you may be experiencing. Naming ceremonies were difficult for me, and especially they kept coming, and you could actually see children coming in here and there, and you have to be there for the purpose of celebrating with the couple that has been blessed with a child, and also be happy for the child that has come and be hopeful for the future of the child. It's like you must celebrate the successes of people even though yours had not come, and it was difficult. So one of the naming ceremonies, I was praying. I was like, God, and said that yes, you have to come to the place where you are happy for every single naming ceremony that you come. And I'm bringing this thing up because without that relationship, without the community, then we will not have opportunity to be challenged when it comes to our faith in God. We will not be exposed to even know what is within us. And I mean, I know the whole of our church, you are aware we are very close to the Quasins, Pastor Enoch and Elder Ya. I don't know what would have done without these two people. I don't know. I don't know what personally I would have done without them, because I mean, it got to a time that even though it's not visible when we come out, I also know that inwardly myself and the others were facing a lot of issues, psychological issues here and there. But Pastor Enoch and the wife kept coming to our house. They were not just coming alone, they kept coming to our house with their children. They were coming. Sunday, they are inviting you, you're also going to their place. And it's like the conversation of childbirth did not even come up. The fact that you don't have a child, the fact that they have children, is not part of our conversation. But this thing that is like, you are challenged to love their children. Do you get it? And they are persistently in your presence. Do you get it? It's like people are interested in your life. You're also interested in their lives, but they have something you don't have. They have, and one more find true in him. I don't recall any single day that, especially these two people. I mean, we may have experienced some things elsewhere, but when it comes to Pastor Enoch and Elder Ya, there was no single day that they made us feel like we were childless, even in the presence of their children. And for me, that's the community. That's the community. Pastor Krampa kept praying for us. It's like the community's love, the fact that we were in the midst of people that were being raised to follow a certain doctrine, the doctrine of our church, what we are in. It's like there was no way love was not being experienced. Yeah. And that's what kept us going. And how we even got to know about what was actually happening health-wise, it was through the community. Pastor Eben had similar issue, and then we met one day and it's like, Charlie, fight at their back, and this is what I've decided. This is what I've decided to do, and so this is what all of us can do. We can go to this place. It's like be moving together kept us going. I think without the community, we wouldn't be where we are. And so what we were in was like, this is what the community is in. What we were fighting for was like, this is what the community is fighting for. It's not that that's the priority of the community, but it's like when it comes to you, you are not alone in what you are looking for. When it comes to you, you have support when you are going down. And that for me was very strengthening. It's very key that we don't find ourselves outside the community that God has blessed us with, especially when we are in this kind of issue.
We say it's that OYE is the church baby, And that is because everybody was invested. Everybody was invested in their own way. The support was enormous. I talked about how Pastor Wendy was in prayer with us the night where we were having the surgery. I'm sure she was not the only one. Anybody who knew about it. When we came back, several people were with us in prayer, talking about the several godchildren that we have and the various experiences each of them gave us. It was wonderful. Throughout the pregnancy, the community has been there. Support here and there. It's like everything you need, there is somebody moved to supply everything. Every step along the way, there was counsel coming from here, coming from there, directions, and these were people that are in touch with the Lord. So the directions are coming from God and they are helpful to us. And one of the blessings of the faith community, you said they were coming around us with children. You have to be happy. The opportunity to deal with jealousy in your heart, it was a wonderful opportunity.
It was an abundance.
It was. There was no lack of opportunity to deal with jealousy. You have to. The children are there and they were our children. We had to be with them. We had to help take care of them. We had to love them as our own. So, yes, you have the opportunity and you have to deal with that jealousy. Else, how will you be happy? Because my sisters all around me were getting pregnant and having children, and they were my children as well. So I had to deal with my heart concerning them. And I believe in that the Lord helped us. So when it came to the faith community, I don't think we would have survived without. I don't think our marriage would have survived without them. And I remember that Elder Nanaya sent me a message before we had the night that we were informed. When we were informed that the third pregnancy had ended. I was in conversation with her throughout the whole process, throughout the whole period. I think they even came to visit us at the hospital. We were with them throughout, but I didn't tell her. So that day, I was in conversation with her, but I did not tell her. She got to know in church with everybody else. Then she sent me a message that when we are happy together. But when they are difficult, I'm paraphrasing, but this was the import of the message, that when we are happy, we share it together. But when there are difficult times, we shouldn't hide the difficult times from each other. If we can laugh together, we can cry together. I mean, that message hit me, because this is somebody I was talking to throughout the day, everything we talk about. But when this thing came, I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't tell her, because it's like you don't want to worry the person with your troubles. But that is a wrong mentality. Indeed, if we are able to laugh together, we should be able to cry together. And we don't hide our pain, because that's what the community is for. The community is for the good times, and the community is for the difficult times as well. So that opened me up to be able to share when there are difficulties. Tell the people around you that the Lord has brought for support. The support system around you should be able to also bear with you in times of difficulty. And that even was the reason I was able to open up and talk to Pastor Brian when I was having the issue with my period, the excessive bleeding. I was able, because at that point, that I had learned to open up and receive help from others as well, not just to keep my pain to myself, but to be able to receive help, and that had been a blessing. Alright, so a few things I would say is don't give up on God. Don't give up in your search for God. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that held me to give up is to die. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope in your search for God concerning your situation. Do not give up. Because if you give up, then the search has ended. You are no longer searching for it. But if you don't lose hope in your search for God, you will find Him. And the next thing I'll see is not to go through it alone. Don't go through it alone. We've spoken a lot about the importance of the community, how the community helped us, and that is one thing that I want to highlight, is not to go through it alone. As much as possible, open up to your community, open up to your faith community, the people around, people of like faith who are also searching for the Lord with you. You open up to them, that the Lord will be able to reach you. If the Lord has help for you, I mean, a lot of the help that we received, we did not receive from God directly. They came through people. The Lord used people to help us in several ways. The Lord used our pastors, the Lord used our brethren, the Lord used our family and friends. A lot of the words that came, that encouraged us, strengthened us, that directed us, the instructions of the Lord. Several of the instructions of the Lord to me personally, they came through pastor. They came through the teaching. Some came through one-on-one. Some came through the sermon. So don't go through it alone. Don't go through it alone. On our own, I don't think that we would be here. We would be here sharing this testimony with you. So don't go through it alone. There are people that the Lord will use to reach you, to help you. And there are people that the Lord will place your matter on their hearts to intercede for you. Even the praying, the Lord will raise people to pray with you, to pray for you. The Lord will raise people to receive instructions for you. The Lord will raise people to just be there to support, to wipe your tears, to laugh with you, to cry with you. And don't go through it alone. Sometimes you feel like we don't want people to know our issue because people talk, people will gossip about you. A lot of us complain about the people we are in church with, that my church people are somewhere, my church people. Which people should be somewhere? It is somewhere people that need the Lord. It is bad people that look for God. They have issues. So by all means, those of us who have gathered in church, we are people with issues. It's people with issues who find God. It is sinners that Jesus is looking for. So definitely things will be wrong with us in church. But it doesn't mean that you can't share with us. We are the same people that the Lord will use to reach out to you, to help you, to bless you. So don't go through it alone. The final thing is that the Lord leads us through instructions. The Lord leads us through instructions. If you are going through a similar thing, pay attention to the instructions of the Lord that will come to you. This is how the Lord will bring you to the desired place. It's through obedience. So pay attention to those instructions, no matter how difficult they are. Those instructions are definitely not easy to obey. There are things that go against who we are, that the Lord seeks to change for the help to be able to reach us. So you pay attention to the instructions of the Lord that will come, instruction upon instruction, instruction upon instruction. There was a point at which I came to. I remember the month that we found out we were pregnant. That was in March. That month I celebrated my birthday, and I remember that on the 9th of my birthday, that was the 23rd of March, after all the celebrations, the Thanksgiving, everything, before I went to bed, I was sitting on my bed and I was reflecting, and in prayer I asked the Lord that at this point that we've come to, I feel like we are very close. I feel like we are very close, and I feel like we've done all, but as we have not received what we are looking for, we have not received the end that we are looking for. It means that then we are not there yet. It means that there is more to be done. So what is the next step? What is the next instruction? What should we do next? So that was my prayer. at that point, the Lord had brought me to the point where I was looking for instructions from Him to obey, because I knew that that's how He works, and there are things to do, there are steps to take. So that night, I was asking the Lord, what is the next instruction? And by the grace of God, a few days or so later, we found out that we were pregnant. So that is the point, is that the Lord leads us through instructions, and you should pay attention to those instructions and give yourself to it, be open to it, because that is how the help of the Lord will eventually come through instructions. So these are the three main things.
Everybody gives advice, and we received a lot of advice, and so now we are blessed with a child, and yes, we are in the position to share with you what we believe will help. One of the first things I want to talk about is when it comes to children, and we are not getting the result we are looking for, we try as much as possible to find the source of the problem, either is the man or the woman. And one key thing I want to say, so that I can use that to share with you what I think our belief systems ought to be, is in the entirety of God's universe, God is the giver and all are recipients. God is the giver and all are recipients. The Bible says every good and perfect gift comes from God. It comes from the Father above. And so one of the key things is that the enemy is going to attack you. I want you to know that if the enemy is not already attacking you, whatever that you are looking forward to receive, you don't have the capacity to make it. It is God that is going to give it. It's God that is going to bring it to you. But the truth of the matter is that you are not in the position to receive it. You are not in alignment to receive it. If you have not received what God already is in perpetual endeavor to give to you, if we have not received the good, it means that God is giving it, but we are not in position to receive it. Something within us is stopping the coming of God to us. And so the first thing is, God gives, we receive. And because God gives and we receive, should we not be in the position of receiving it, then there is a problem. And so the next thing is that we must accept that we are incapable. You have to accept it. It is not in your control to have what you're looking for. And you have to accept that it's because of your nature as man. Acceptance is very key in this process. So to accept you are weak, to accept you are not the one going to bring the result, to accept that you are going to face pressure, to accept you are in this universe, you are in the earth, and the reality is that you are going to face pressure. It is okay. Now, if we are going to accept that we don't have what it takes, then of course we are going to look for a solution. And the next thing I'm going to say, I've said the first one. The first one is that don't forget that you are not the giver. You are not the creator. Don't allow anyone to force you to hook something, to do something. Remember that God is the giver. And we are not in the position to receive because there is something with us that is standing in the way. And that thing we have to know, we have to accept, we have to come to a revelation that yes, we are standing in the way of God. And if we are going to then align ourselves to God, we have to pray. We have to pray. We have to seek spirituality. My sister, my brother, this condition, if it's childbirth you are looking for, if it's poverty you are in, you want to have some wealth, if it is some difficulty, if your spiritual pursuit, to pray, to desire that God opens you up, that you may be a vessel prepared enough to receive the good that you you were destined to have. There is one last thing I want to say concerning this. Any negative position that we are in, we as men cannot and should not make it our destiny. Don't make it your destiny that you were made not to give birth. Yes. Like don't accept that you were made not to experience good in life. That's not the destiny of man. That is a lie. None of us are special. We are not different. God is special, and all of us were made to partake in that superior energy, that goodness. And so if you are in a position where good is not on your side, don't put yourself in the category of saying that you have been cursed. You don't deserve this. You were not made to experience it. It's not true. All of us were made to experience the goodness of God. And therefore, you don't have to give up in the process by putting a certain identity on you that media me different or more me a janka or more. No, none of us whatsoever was made not to experience God. And if we are not experiencing God the way He would want us to be in, then there is something wrong with us. We accept it, we go to Him that He will help us. That's my